Party, no, it was like Irish. I got you $50. Traditional. Should they? Yes.
Okay, I'm not look at it.
I just went through all, you'll have to get copies of all of them now.
Forget it.
Jigs and reels.
I'm gonna tease Kathy about her joy
And I'm gonna get that bowl.
of shopping and doing all this.
We'll do a little, we'll do a little shopping.
So maybe how I can get a book to be a copy.
Yeah, I have a whole Irish pencil. Yeah, you'll have to.
Yeah, maybe next Sunday.
Yeah, because those jigs and reels.
I have Lori.
Some of them are in 6, 8, and others are 4.
So what time, what time?
It's at 2 o'clock on Monday of the 17th of March.
Yeah, I can kind of follow hers all over there.
And I'm looking for a hat.
I have to transpose what she's got. Because she's got, I'm stapled up.
Wearing of the green.
I guess I wouldn't have to do that. I could take the paper off and play the chords. I don't like playing. So, and it's simple enough to. It's intuitive.
I thought so. Oh, here.
My kind of humor.
There's your picture. Okay, now, whatever you like. I'd love to have you come.
Kelly was telling me how much joy you were having of shopping and putting home.
You know, it is amazing how much fun office supplies are. I forgot it. I had fun with office supplies this weekend, making choir. I have choir folders.
You got a whole bunch?
Oh, no, there is, I have one at home, because I'm the queen of office supplies apparently. I just had fun, just
So when Kelly
three
told
hole punching.
when Kelly told me that, I said, she's a nut.
Oh, goodness gracious. We'll just sit here.
I just noticed it.
I can do that.
Sure that's, well, I knew that was gonna happen.
What did you do to it, Kathy?
Well,
Somebody trimmed it.
I usually go through all the boxes and trim the wicks, because when it's that long one, then it goes.
Those candles aren't typical office supplies, so.
Okay, it is 10:28.
And 9:14.
What happened to your phone? Died?
No,
Or it's your watch?
solar powered watch, and I think the.
You never
I've
know
had it in the
sun
window.
you're
I've had it in the window, and I think it's dying. It works for a while, and then it stops.
Oh, no.
This is the kind of this is the kind of discussion where you diss people. That's why it's. People are anticipating.
10:29. Not yet.
Approximately 30 seconds.
Thank you. Count me down.
Yes, we're on. We're live.
I'm doing it on camera.
Oh,
I don't know what the actual,
okay.
it's 10:30.
It's
Anyway.
10:30. No, it's not.
Check your phone.
188 is our gathering song.
No, I just.
There we go. I'll just give an intro, you know this pretty well.
Welcome to all who've joined us in person, as well as all of those who've joined us online. It's good to be back with you again this Sunday. My name is Bryan, and my pronouns are he, him. We have a few announcements, so I beg your patience, but these are, a growing congregation has a lot of announcements, so that's good news, right? So, first of all, I'm supposed to make sure I put this more towards the front announcements. We do have, we don't take up an offering, but we do have an offering basket in the back, and it's just a weekly reminder that we do that, and we would love your support if you feel so moved to do so. We try to keep our service to 1 hour, for those of you that know that already, but sometimes we go a little bit over, and today, given our topic, I'm going to try to keep us on task. I'm not going to drive the conversation, just moderate the time, and so we'll try to do our best, but feel free to leave if you need to go. Today is Circle Sunday, which is going to be, instead of a reflection or meditation or presentation by me, we're just going to sit and talk, and I think it's going to be kind of cool to do that, especially after listening to Dean's message from last week. Next week, we're going to be celebrating Imbolc, Goddess of Fire, Healing, and Compassion, because it just happens to be Imbolc on February the 2nd. Well, so we'll also be talking about how, you know, in good old America, we call it Groundhog Day, and how Catholicism and other Christians call it Candlemas, but it's all from the same place. February 9th, the next Sunday, Claudia Schmidt will be with us, so we're really excited about that as well. February, even though it's a short month, is going to be fun and interesting, so we're hoping that you will join us. Now, for some of the longer announcements, Dakota UU has been recognized as only one of 2 congregations in Minnesota by the national body of the UUA Siding with Love, UU the Vote, as a good trouble congregation because of our Get Out the Vote efforts last year. There's going to be a 90-minute online celebration on Tuesday, January 28th at 7 p.m., and there is a link available for you if you would like to join. I know I'm going to be there, but feel free to join and see what it's all about. It's very interesting to see that 2 rather small congregations are the ones in Minnesota that have been recognized. That means we're doing good stuff, people. That's really cool. The next announcement is that Barbara May is going to be offering a 4-session bi-weekly book discussion on the book 8 Ways to Hope. They are tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, February the 4th and 18th, March 4th and 18th. Well, that's good. That's easy to remember. And they're from 6:30 to 8 p.m. If you want more information about that and are interested, please see Kelly. Please fill out the Google form sent in the MailChimp by this Friday to have a say in the UUA's next study action issues. And also, please plan to attend our next congregational retreat on Saturday, February the 2nd from 10 a.m. What's that?
February 22nd.
Did I say the 20th? What did I?
You said the 2nd.
Oh, my mind's on the 2nd. February 22nd from 10 a.m. to noon to help us move forward in the direction that people, our group, want us to go. So that's February 22nd. More information about that, also see Kelly. The next announcement number, I was going to say number. We are looking for volunteers to work on the following committees: social media, website marketing committee, the security plan committee, the greeter pool committee, and we will be electing a new treasurer for next year. So see Kelly, well, you're a busy woman. Kelly for more information. All right, so those are our announcements that I have scripted. Any other announcements?
Just in regards to today's discussion, if you're in the back or have a tendency to have a softer voice, speak up so that the microphone up here can pick you up for the people online.
Or come up here if you.
Or yes.
Or stand up. You'll move.
Thank you. I have a question about the Barbara May Book Club. I'm not there in person, so how do I see Kelly, or how can I sign up for it, Kelly?
Can you put your email, or maybe it's in the directory? Is your email?
Yeah, Amy's
Yes,
in the directory.
my email is in the directory and yours is too, so if I remember, I will shoot you an email.
Oh, great. I can look you up too. Thanks, Kelly. All right.
Yep.
Yes.
Speaking of the roster, we have, it's correct in the roster, but Peg's email is almost exactly the same, just one character off, from a very nice lady named Peggy Williams, who is, as she said, imploring us to try not to put her in one of our email threads, because she's been getting emails for this WOW group, and this has happened before to her, because it's only one
And
character off.
It's your old email address, I think.
Well, I've had this for a long time,
Anyway.
Peggy C.
Yes,
67,
but hers
and
is-
hers is
hers-
Peggy 67.
Yes,
Yes.
and we're both at Hotmail, and
Yeah.
the poor thing, and she was,
And once it got
Very
into
tolerant.
our systems, it
then
remembers that one.
it gets stuck.
And
So if everybody could please double check that,
Yes.
and it
It's
is
C
correct
for
on the
cool.
roster.
Right.
That's
C for cool.
Peggy Cool, that's right, okay.
Hey, I gotta remember it somehow because I've done that.
I
before,
did
too.
send her quite an apology.
Thank you. Other announcements? Okay, well then I will invite us into a time of meditation and reflection. Take a deep, gentle, slow breath and try to do the best you can to separate yourself from the chaos and the craziness of the world around us. And let's come together in unity of spirit and mind as we listen and enjoy this musical prelude. I invite you to remain seated and join us in the opening words.
The word courage comes from the Latin cor, which means heart. According to poet Mark Nepo, the original use of the word courage meant to stand by one's core, a striking concept that reinforces the belief found in almost all traditions that living from the center is what enables us to face whatever life has to offer.
To encourage means to hearten, to impact strength and confidence. This is our work as a religious community, to encourage one another, to be bold and engaging the world around us, as well as what scares us internally, to give one another the confidence and heart to live as fully as possible.
With full hearts, we affirm our relationships with one another. We recognize our agency and our connective power, and we accept our responsibility to be bold and courageous.
We light this chalice,
Symbol of all that we are, all that we have done together, and all that we will be as our shared ministry encourages those within and beyond our walls.
Therefore, in the spirit of courage and boldness, we light this chalice together and say,
May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal with love, to help with compassion, to bless with joy, to serve you, Spirit of freedom, in the fullness of community.
Our opening hymn is number 183. Number 183. And I invite you to rise as you are able and join us in this hymn.
So, I'll do the intro. She'll play the melody. Okay, we'll just wait until we get settled in here.
Today's beloved, having problems with words today, so forgive me. Today's beloved community moment is adapted from Kim E. Nielsen and her ideas that are published in what's called Disability and American Ideals from Rebecca Tucci's Wild Emancipation. Dakota Unitarian Universalist Church is committed to fighting and working against ableism in all its forms. We strive to welcome and to empower and to help liberate all those who struggle against an ableist society. When disability is considered to be synonymous with deficiency and dependency, it contrasts sharply with American ideals of independence and autonomy. Thus, disability has served an effective weapon in contests over power and ideology. For example, at varying times, African Americans, immigrants, gays and lesbians, poor people, and women have been defined categorically as defective citizens, incapable of full civic participation. In this version of the national story, independence is good and dependency is bad. Dependency means inequality, weakness, and reliance on others. When disability is equated with dependency, disability is stigmatized. Citizens with disabilities are labeled inferior citizens. When disability is understood as dependency, disability is posited in direct contrast to American ideals of independence and autonomy. Dakota UU pledges to continue its journey into what Rebecca Tucci calls engaging in wild anticipation for all of us, a world where we are all free to be, to move, to exist in our bodies without shame, a world that isn't interested in making all of its humans operate in the exact same way, a world that instead strives to invite more, include more, imagine more, a world that sees the humans existing on the margins and says, you have what we want. What barriers can we remove so we can have you around? What do you need? And how can we make this happen? May it be so. And now, I invite you, if you feel moved to do so, to come forward and share a joy and or concern and light a candle. At the end, I'll light a final candle for all those joys and concerns that have been left unspoken. And if anybody online has a joy or concern, please just speak up, and Kathy will light a candle for you.
Well, this is a joy. I'm very happy to report that as a sound healer, a certified sound healer, I have a gig, a solid gig, and it's at the YMCA in Burnsville. I'm going to be doing sound healing, sound bath meditation classes twice a week starting February 4th. And it's available to all members at the Y. So they shifted from that where you had to buy a membership. Now it's under group fitness, and anyone who's a member can come to it. Yay.
Mine's kind of two. Joy, because I'm back with Annabelle. We got to have a nice time at Dan's work party last night. And then a concern because my dog destroyed not one, not two, but three of my purses that were hanging in my closet in plastic bags. So, that's great. Utterly destroyed. I'm so mad.
Yeah, she's pooping right now.
She thinks she had a litter of puppies.
She's crazy.
So she has 3 toys that she's carrying around as her puppies. It's insane.
Thanks for foreshadowing what I got to look forward to.
I think it's because she's not spayed yet.
Yeah, when they go into heat, they're gonna have a false pregnancy when their hormones go crazy.
Go ahead, Holly.
Hi all, good to see you. You can light a couple candles if you'd like, or a million of them. I've got so much joy and some concerns in my life. Number one, I'm just extremely grateful. I'll turn 76 on Tuesday, and I don't remember a time in my life when I had so many riches in terms of friendships and opportunities and wonderful things happening. So I'm extremely grateful. And at the same time, I don't remember a time when there's so much going on in the world of concern. So always sending out requests for mercy for the whole world, but not letting that overtake my joy for sure. And my sister has hopefully will be moving to a new place, which I think has great potential to improve her life. So I'm extremely excited about that. And just concern that, or a prayer and a wish and a hope that I will make all the right decisions before my trip. It's coming up 3 weeks from yesterday, and I've been having some physical things. I've had Charlie horses in my legs for the last 3 nights in the middle of the night. I have no idea why that's happening, but and just a what?
Magnesium. Eat bananas.
Oh, okay, I'll eat bananas. Anyway, just a whole lot going in my life, and so very grateful and hopeful that I handle it all with as much grace as I can, so I'll get a lot out of it and be able to share it with all of you.
Thanks, Holly.
So this is a joy, mainly because of Bruce. Bruce and I finally cleared our living room. So last, I think Friday, right? So Kathleen came to our place to play music. Also invite another musician to come to our place to play the music. And the piano belonged to Bruce's father, and he's a lifelong organist, right? Yeah. So it's really sound wonderful when someone know how to play the piano, make the piano sound really beautiful. We are starting to learn, but so it's a great gift for Bruce's parents to build a house and have the music gift energy circling around that house. So.
Everybody's shying away from the pink, so I'm not going to. I'll now light a final candle for all those joys and concerns that remain unspoken. May we know that whatever befalls us in life, we are held in the loving embrace of this community. And now we say together, for all of these joys and concerns, both spoken and unspoken, we hold you.
Thank you.
We have 2 reflective readings. I was just going to read one, but then Kathy decided that she had something she wanted to add, because mine's a narrative and hers is a poem. So we'll stop with the poem and then we'll go on to our conversation. So this reflective reading comes from the same person who gave us the inspiration for the opening words, Erica Hewer, and it's called Connection as Resistance. In her 1975 theological treatise, Suffering, German liberation theologian Dorothy Zerla examines the ways that suffering can knit human beings closer together and can draw us more fully into the process of loving. She uses the term apathia, the inability to suffer, to describe the condition in which people become so dominated by the goal of avoiding suffering that it becomes a goal to avoid human relationships and contacts altogether. Isolation and apathy are forms of powerlessness. Both destroy. In Zerla's words, we are destroyed most thoroughly by that affliction that robs us of any possibility of loving any longer. The capacity we need the most is the capacity to keep on loving. If pain and suffering tempt us to become isolated and apathetic, Zola argues we must instead give voice to our suffering by creating a language of lament that might draw us into solidarity. The theology offered by Dorothy Zola echoes that of her rough contemporary Hannah Arendt, who was a political theorist rather than a theologian. One of Arendt's most well-known assertions from her work, The Origins of Totalitarianism, is that totalitarianism is organized loneliness, and that the seed of loneliness is isolation. The experience of not belonging to the world at all, which is among the most radical and desperate experiences of human beings. Therefore, resisting the isolation that breeds loneliness is not just an emotional, psychological, or even spiritual act, but also a political one. The blogger and critic Maria Popova puts it this way: our insistence on belonging, community, and human connection is one of the greatest acts of courage and resistance in the face of oppression.
This poem is I'm Hanging On by Farrah Tucker. I'm hanging on by a thread, and so are you, and him, and her, and them. But what if we tied our threads together? What if we stitched something strong enough to withstand the weight of it all, of us all? Big enough to make sure there's always a place to hold on to, even when parts of the fabric are threadbare. I'm hanging on by a thread, but I'm trying to learn how to weave.
And so today is Circle Sunday, and we're going to be engaging in a conversation, dialogue, about the topic of how do we engage in resistance while not forgetting to love one another and not get descended into that loneliness and isolation, and also at the same time not forgetting those who are the most vulnerable. So as we ponder those kinds of thoughts and what you'd like to contribute, Kathleen is going to play the reflection now as we, Kathleen Isuki, sorry, while we ponder and get ready for our conversation.
So I choose this song, as we both choose that song, also echoes the question Bryan just mentioned. For me, it's the question I ask myself, like for a daily basis, how could my interaction with other, my interaction with my inner self, still be a serenade? That's the name, that's the sound of the play. Still be a serenade in spite of the outside world is in chaos, a lot of uncertainty. So that's the song.
How fortunate we are to have amazing musicians. We thank you. And so before, this is one of those things that my job to say, before we engage in discussion, let us remember that we are a nonprofit organization, and it's very important to refrain from being partisan in our conversation. It's perfectly fine to talk about political issues because philosophy and theology are political things, but we have to be very careful about not mentioning particular names and political parties. And that's just to make sure that we retain safe nonprofit status, especially in the current political climate in which we're in. Did that sound okay? Okay. That was not supposed to be preaching, but
Cautious.
yeah, cautious. So,
Can you get us going, like ask a question?
sure. So, again, the topic is more like, how do we engage in resistance? And it's kind of an interesting question for this congregation, having just been awarded the recognition of being a good trouble congregation. So we're already doing this. But I think the inherent problem in it is because we're also very passionate about what we believe are the right things to do, that it can move us to descend into despondency and into isolation, even as a group. And separate, and we can become angry and frustrated, so much so that we lose our joy, which is interesting how the Spirit moved to have this beautiful song that's a serenade that stands for keeping our joy. And in addition to all of that, how do we protect each other and those who are most vulnerable during that, and practicing our love without having this, temptation to be really outwardly angry. It's okay to be angry. I'm not saying anger is bad, of course, but we end up becoming grumpy. And it's okay to be grumpy too, but how do we live our faith in joy in a time when we've got to work so hard to resist all that's just happened in the last week even, right? So is that helpful?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my blog, I'm not trying to tout it, but since I'm not doing a presentation, I had to take an opportunity to write a sermon. So my blog is a good place to start. If you ever are interested in the things that I do, it's linked on the website and it's always in MailChimp. But my way of doing that is to commune with nature, because I've been so fortunate as a result of the encouragement and support from this congregation to be able to achieve or start to achieve the dream of having a restorative, regenerative, and biodynamic small family farm. And it is an act of resistance because all of the people around me are engaging in corporate industrial agriculture with all kinds of things. And so we get the eye raise, even though it's pretty passive aggressive because you know where we are. But it's an act of resistance, and it doesn't seem that way sometimes because, you know, it's not so outwardly doing so, but this stuff that's happening right now, it's not just happening for the first time. It just happens to be happening again in such ways that might anger us. So, how can you resist and keep your joy?
So I take joy every time I find another place to buy something except for Amazon, because I see that as an act of resistance. Every time I purchase eggs from Bryan instead of the grocery store, I mean, you just gotta, you know, I purposely tell myself, hee hee hee, I'm being sneaky. Or, you know, so that's how I find my joy, by every little tiny purchase I do that isn't giving to the oligarchs and the oligarchical systems, you know, the monopolies. I just take joy from every little, you know, think of it as an act of subversion, and suddenly it becomes an act of subversion. So that's how I do it.
I think one thing we can do is find the intersectionality of what brings us joy and engagement of the community. Like, you might be surprised to know this, but for me it's music and humor, and I think the more we can share our joys with other people, the better things are. And as we were singing the hymn this morning, and we came upon the words that says, with faith that sinks and feet that tire, but none shall conquer or control the heavenward hunger of our soul. When I first looked at that, I thought it said, with faith that stinks.
There's something in that.
So yeah, I see the humor in my own misreading of things. And the other thing I wanted to mention was, you know, you can do small things, you can do big things. One person that did a big thing was the Right Reverend Marion Buddy. Is that how you say it? Who did the sermon on the weekend of the inauguration with Trump sitting there, and just, it was amazing.
Very loving, but very clear.
But she was doing political speech in a church, and you just told us we can't do that.
Well, no, I said not. We can talk about politics. We're just not supposed to talk about partisan issues.
I don't understand the distinction.
The distinction between partisan politics and politics in general is that we, as a congregation, can't be seen as supporting a particular political party
Or candidate.
especially a candidate. But if somebody is in office already, we're so, in America, we're allowed to talk about that. But we can't endorse a candidate, and we can't endorse a political party. So that's the careful line to trod.
So now that the election's over, we're a little safer
Yes,
with what we can, okay.
In a way, yeah.
in a way.
In a way.
We can agree and disagree on the issues that are political, but we can't choose a side. We are not Democratic or Republican. We are the church. Whatever, we can't pick
That's
a
correct.
side.
That's it.
We can discuss the issues and have our opinions on the issues.
We can't
We
pick
can't-
a partisan side, but we can pick a side in terms of values
Right.
and
Yes.
principles
Right.
and,
If there,
yeah.
so if there are
it's
policies that don't agree with our moral beliefs that's being acted on, we can discuss those policies and how we can ease through them and try to figure out how to bring it back to the other side.
Yeah, and a great example of it is like, you know, we have people on both sides of the two major political parties who are pro-women's rights, no matter what the platform of that political party is. So we can speak about things like women's rights, and we can certainly be open and support the LGBTQ community and things like that, because there are people, that's not a partisan issue. Even though it could be construed that way, it is not, because there are people in both political parties that agree and disagree on all those things. So that is how we can talk about politics, but not partisan politics.
And then prior to the election, so for those who weren't aware of it, DUU was helping get out the vote and making sure people try to get yourself educated and then make a educated vote.
I just want to say about my perspective, I guess, of what resistance is. Resistance is, you know, standing in your truth and standing in love for, you know, instead of getting out and I don't know, it seems like when, you know, people protest and stuff, then we have all these sides coming together and they're fighting against each other so hard instead of stepping back and seeing what the real issues are and supporting more nonviolent things. But I see these, you know, some of these people that are going into office as wounded. I see their wound, and it's like recognizing the pain within them and why they're doing some of the behaviors they do. I learned that from Valerie Carr because I'm reading her book, See No Stranger to It. So.
I'm real concerned about this rounding up of people of color, apparently at random, from churches, schools, factories, chicken farms. It bewilders me that that's going on.
The amount of people that are scared to go to work, scared to go to school.
It's such an inhumane way to approach the issue, and I don't see where it's going. And the irony of it is a lot of these people are doing jobs that contribute in many ways to society. And who's going to do that work? Who's going to harvest crops? Who's going to cut up your chicken at the factory? Who's going to deliver your groceries from Walmart? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know how we resist against that. Living in Burnsville, which is a very diverse, integrated community, I have hope because I see diversity everywhere I go in Burnsville. And I don't see all this conflict and hate in my own community. That gives me encouragement, but what I see on the TV screen, it doesn't make any sense.
So I'm just gonna put in a plug-in for Moose Jaw right now. Moose Jaw is trying to get itself involved with rapid response teams when they hear that, you know, ICE is going to a school or something. So if you want more information about that, see me, email me. I'm Dawn Getke in the directory, and I can get you hooked up with that if you want to know about being a rapid response team person for that.
It's interesting to note whenever I generated the thought is how we protect people who were in those situations. And, you know, it seems like the first thing that I go to in my mind is like creating a sanctuary to hide people, like, you know, the Diary of Anne Frank, you know, that kind of thing. But that's not all. Like I was listening to not a podcast, but a video on TikTok, because I like TikTok. And it was the superintendent of the Chicago Public Schools saying that ICE is not allowed in Chicago Public Schools unless there's a direct warrant. That's an act of resistance without actually doing anything other than protecting children. And so there's lots of different ways that we can engage that issue. without having to put ourselves at a kind of risk that would potentially harm us too. Because that's not really the answer either. I mean, there are those people who can do that, and I have the highest esteem. And I was once a person who had the energy and the wherewithal to go and protest. I mean, I was arrested several times. I can say that in this congregation and not get in trouble. But, and I even remember that one of our senators, who's now a senator in Minnesota, was not a senator at the time and bailed us out of jail in St. Paul. So I don't feel like I can go out and march in a protest as much these days. I may come to that someday and I'm not going to give up on it, but you know, those were the days when I could do that, but that's not the only ways to show, you know, our concern. There's lots of other ways, I think.
And we can figure out creative ways to protest, like Kathy was organizing a group of people to go down to St. Paul to join with the other UUs and other people of faith on People's March, which was an anniversary of the Women's March from 4 years ago.
8 years ago.
8 years ago, sorry. And but it was decided that let's keep it local, and we did a little thing in Egan and in front of the city hall there, and we had what, 8 people or 10 or 7 people.
Plus one.
We have 8 people, including a lady who joined us. Just she saw us and parked the car and joined us.
That's awesome.
And she came to church the next day. And that's just a small little thing that can put a spark in somebody's mind, and people driving by and honking and giving their support.
We didn't get nobody flipped us the bird at all.
At least that we saw.
That we saw.
Right. And somebody who maybe had a scowl on their face as they drove by, maybe had, oh, you know, that one sign made me think about something, you know. You never know what little spark can happen just from a little effort, you know.
And just, I was gonna bring that up because if you remember when we were doing the sermon with Dr.
Phil Lund?
Phil Lund, he was like saying, don't have people join us, have people join your cause.
Right. Join our cause, not our club.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was a prime example of somebody seeing a cause in action and stopping and trying to find out more about us.
And to your point, Todd, I think the reason they are trying to do that is to keep us isolated and keep us scared so that we won't fight back because we're too scared, and we won't get to know people who might get deported because they're scary, and that keeps us isolated and doesn't connect us, keeps us disconnected. So there's a definite, intention there.
And to tag on with that, when Dean spoke last week, he mentioned a conversation with Jon Stewart and John Meacham. It's a 1-hour podcast. I haven't listened to the whole thing, and it's called like Jon Stewart's The Weekly Show.
The Weekly
It used to be
Show.
The Daily Show, yeah. And at near the beginning, they were talking about the fact that creating that fear is not just a byproduct, it is intentional.
Right.
They use the phrases and the words and the concepts with the intention of scaring people into submission. It's, yeah.
We all know that no greater proportion of immigrants, illegal and illegal, we know that no greater proportion of these people are criminals than would be true of the citizens of this country, you know what I mean? We all know that. There's criminals in every group, there's bad people everywhere. It's such a small percentage, 0.5% maybe, I don't know. That's the group that, we don't want terrorists, we don't want criminals, that's obvious, but to just go around, 99% of the people you're rounding up aren't gonna be these type of people. I know that's common sense, but that's not the message that we're getting.
Right.
Absolutely. In the words of the man that's been doing it, he says, it would take too much time, so we just get rid of them all.
So I came upon something yesterday. It's called 50 Protests in 50 states, one day. It will be a peacefully protesting at all of our 50 state capitals. This is on February 5th. I believe it's a Wednesday. And we demand representation for freedom of speech, racial equality, election integrity, women's rights, LGBTQ+, public health and safety, gun violence, climate change, wealth equality. So, that's a concrete thing we could do.
February 5th.
Can you say who's organizing that? Do you know who's buying it?
Okay, let's see, I really don't have more information. It says we still have the right to protest, use it. And then a quote from Edmund Burke, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. So, I found it yesterday and I didn't find the source.
Maybe if you Google 50 states, 50 protests one day, that's the title.
You'll probably find it, yeah.
Oh, yeah, you will. Or I can forward it to you.
I can,
I'm across the street, so if you want to come have lunch with me or something, I might meet you there.
Well, I think everything we're talking about as far as resisting is the policies of the new administration. Everything that everyone has mentioned leads to that. Now, is that partisan? Does anyone see it any other way? This new administration is bringing all these things out that we're talking about resisting.
It's not, I don't think that it's partisan, because even recently, I'm not sure how many people follow the different kinds of things like the cabinet approvals by the Senate. There are recently people who are in the same party as the current administration and the presidency who voted against cabinet members. So it's not just partisan.
Completely.
It is crazy to me. I'm 70-something years old, I can say.
Something.
And so I remember the 60s and 70s. And I remember, for instance, when we did perceive things like Congress and the president as serving the whole nation. And for instance, the State of the Union address would come on, the president would speak as the president, and then people would discuss that. But nowadays, the president gives this, and this has been going on for probably a decade or more. The president gives the State of the Union address as the president, as, the top of the whole heap, and then the networks or the corporate media pop in with the partisan response. As if, what? This was the president of all of us just speaking as the president, and now you're giving a partisan response. Who or what is that representing? The opposition to the union? And that kind of thinking permeates everything. I get a little shiver up my spine every time someone says both sides. It's only two now, we're all in, two little stacks. I just try really hard in my own brain to resist thinking of things as partisan when they're civic. And I try to force myself every day to remember we are a whole, and that no one should be marginalized or othered, including the people who voted for the person in power. There is no other. We're all in this together. And just as a little thing, Keith knows I get addicted to YouTube series and listen to them while I'm cooking and cleaning the kitchen and stuff. And lately I've been listening to a series of, they're reading from books written by German prisoners of war who were brought to the United States, and their experience as when they were in Europe and fighting for the Nazis, and they weren't all Nazis, but they were fighting for the Nazis. And then they come to America and work as prisoners of war for 3 or 4, 5 years, I don't know. And the image that you get of America when you're listening to those videos with the German soldiers talking to each other about how they're so glad they were captured by the Americans and not the French or the Russians or even the British. And you get this, and you're reminded that America was, and could be manifesting the values of fairness and justice and treating even the enemy as a human being and being generous and compassionate and paying more attention to what works than what fits with your ideology. And
Or what makes money.
What?
Or what makes money.
Or what makes money. Oh, yeah. And it's really comforting. I mean, they're interesting just in a historical sense, but I mean, it really helps for me to reinforce my recollection of what America could be and is. We still have that inside us. And anyway, German POW things on YouTube.
But I think that's a good place for us to pause, because we never are going to have enough time to do all this conversation that we want to have. But I invite you to stay after and enjoy. Do we have treats? A little bit of treats.
Just a little bit.
Well, it's not about the treats, it's about the conversation, right? So I invite you to continue the conversation, and it shouldn't just be today. Let's just keep, this is a seed of an ongoing dialogue, I hope.
I want to interrupt you, the order of service for just a second.
Uh-oh.
Because we have
right.
we have a presentation. And I noticed throughout the service today, there were little there was allusions to weaving and threads and weaving people together. And so, I'm so proud I came up with that. So we have a part of our community has come together to make something, and they should come up here and present that to Bryan. There you go.
It's a nice case.
An easy bake oven or something.
So this was a collaboration between Linda and Carrie.
Am I supposed to open it?
They won't bite, you won't jump out.
Squirrels, jumping
Ooh,
squirrels.
it's tissue paper. I don't believe in violence, but I'm gonna get you. Oh, yeah. Here, I'm gonna do it right now.
Chicken dance.
I would play serenade for the chicken.
Linda painted
Chicken
this.
dance.
Oh my gosh,
Really
really?
constructed it. It's just
Well, thank you.
amazing.
I'm gonna try not to get emotional. Thank you.
Kathy's the one who suggested, and you asked her for some stalls, and she said, oh, let's make him a chicken stall. And I was thinking of something kind of silly at the time and humorous, you know, but then Linda painted this art. And
Amazing.
brought it to my house, and I said, okay, I've got to sew this up right. And then I read your blog this time, and chickens aren't silly. I mean, what they represent to you, and the caring for the earth, and the caring for each other, and the connection and the love. And I read your blog, and I thought, oh, this is the perfect stole for this congregation. Poor man.
How am I gonna lead the rest of this service?
All you got is the closing hymn, you're over.
I messed
Yeah,
up.
closing him and.
I can resist that song inside on.
I don't have anything written down. Thank you
You're
very
welcome.
much.
From your other flock.
Yes, thank you. All right, let's do the closing hymn.
All right.
We don't come running when you snap your fingers.
But we we do if you throw trees?
Closing hymn is number 300.
Yes,
Same
please
melody
rise
we
as you're
sang in
able.
183. Same
300.
melody.
Maybe we should all dance the chicken.
So,
With heart and mind and voice and pen, may we this time and place transcend to make our purpose understood. A mortal search for mortal good, a firm commitment to the goal of justice, freedom, peace for all. A mind that's free to seek the truth, a mind that's free in age and youth, to choose a path no threat in peace, wherever noise of conscience speaks. Our martyrs died so we could be a church where every mind is free. A heart that's kind, a heart whose search makes love a spirit of our church, where we can grow and each one's gift is sanctified and spirits lift, where every door is open wide for all who choose to step inside.
Go in peace. That's it.
okay, we're going to sing a song at the end here. We're singing a song. Oh, we're singing a song? We're singing a song.
Look at that.
Blowing in the wind. Chuck?
You're just gonna stand there and, oh, I'm gonna sing Blowing in the Wind.
Okay.
We're not done yet.
Dan,
Oh, we got
the
thrown by
words
the
on the
chickens.
screen for Blowing in the Wind.
Oh.
Bob Dylan.
Forgot about
Yeah.
Oh, I was saying-
Sorry, we're going over, but we're going to do
that.
it.
Let's do it. Do it. Give me more time to cry.
I'm just going to do an intro.